Cholesterol is borderline, so I took control with Garlic Healthy Cholesterol Formula. Garlic helps maintain healthy cholesterol safely and naturally. It's odor and taste-free, and Garlic is a world leader in garlic potency. I'm taking charge of my cholesterol with Garlic Healthy Cholesterol Formula, cholesterol's natural enemy.
These statements have not been evaluated by the FDA. This product is not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease. The term natural references only the garlic in the product. Use as directed.
The S&P 500 reached another record today.
Stocks rose to records on Wall Street Wednesday. The S&P 500 rose 0.8% and surpassed its previous set in January. The Nasdaq Composite jumped 1.6%. The Dow Jones Industrial Average fell 72 points, or 0.1%. Markets have been rallying over the last 2 weeks on hopes for an end to the war with Iran. The U.S. and Iran are currently in a ceasefire. Oil prices held relatively steady below $100 per barrel. They are still well above roughly $70 per barrel from just before the war. Damian Troisi, New York.
On Wednesday, Bank of America reported a 30% increase in stock trading revenues for the first quarter, earning $2.8 billion. News and analysis at townhall.com. From Washington, I'm Keith Peters reporting.
Dan Patrick for my friend Louis Flory and Ability Tree Experts.
Spring is here and summer just around the corner, which means it's time to deep root fertilize your trees in addition to spraying for insects and disease. Let Ability Trees help maintain their value and repair all damage. Fed and pruned tree will be less susceptible to wind damage and uprooting. Caring for the beautiful and valuable trees on your property that you can't replace should be done by experts. And the experts I use, it's very clear. It's Ability Tree Experts and Louis Flory,
My friend for over 40 years.
Gosh, this guy is the pro when it comes to taking care of trees. You know, pruning is important for the health of your trees, and pruning limits resistance to spring storms and allows the sun and fresh air into the canopy. Trees can be in distress several months without showing any signs, so don't wait to protect your investment at 281-441-4179, 281-441-4179, or visit their website at abilitytrees.com. Right now, Ability Trees is giving a deep root feeding with every tree prune. Ability Trees, Houston's leading tree care professional.
Matches back here in the Mac Z-Cliner. I'm recovering from surgery thanks in large part to this miracle chair, the Mac Z-Cliner. You can sit in it, you can recline in it, you can watch TV in it, you can eat in it, you can sleep in it. It goes to zero gravity position. The Mac Z-Cliner helped me recover. It also has heat and massage, a place to charge your cell phone. Come out to Galway Furniture, buy a Mac Z-Cliner before your surgery. Galway Furniture delivers tonight, or after your surgery, Galway Furniture delivers tonight, and you'll sit and sleep great tonight.
Hi, I'm Tommy Mello with Garage Door Doctors. My mom recently moved into a new home with a builder-grade garage door. Noisy, flimsy, and not built to last, so we're fixing that. Mom, you're my hero. When I was growing up, she worked 3 jobs just to save our house.
And helped you build this company.
Now I'm giving her a beautiful new garage door that's built to last. The garage is 40% of your home's curb appeal. When it looks good and it works great.
Life is good. Thanks, Tommy.
From repairs to upgrades, call Garage Door Doctor today.
Where should I begin?
Can we talk about this?
Say, what are you trying to say?
Beyond the usual controversial talk.
Blah, 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 on and on and on.
Over there.
One,
two, cha-cha-cha. 1, 2, cha-cha-cha.
Prepare yourself for Craig.
Okay.
Preparing a mighty new spectacle here.
Articulate, stimulating, hit you right in the... there you go.
We start becoming a team right now.
This is the Craig Collins Show.
Lord Jesus, oh God, no.
Start talking. Talk fast.
This station is now the ultimate power in the universe.
Now your host.
He's a good man.
Craig.
Oh, yeah. It is the Craig Collins Show. KSEV, KGBC. The voice of Texas. So excited. Hold on. Let me transition the video so you see me there. So excited to be with you like I am every single day on this radio station. I am thrilled to be a part of the show, or the station, I should say, obviously, a part of the Craig Collins Show, as I am, in fact, Craig Collins. I will be filling in for Dana Lash a bunch in the next few weeks. I will give you more information as those dates get closer, but there will be a few shows at the end of this month, a few shows at the beginning of next month, where I babysit her nationally syndicated radio show. And you might hear Senator Paul Betancourt pop up on there again. I've been enjoying having him on. Whenever I fill it, well, occasionally when I fill in on there, because I don't think I could book him every time I fill in. I feel like eventually someone might say, hey, We got to at least pay Senator Betancourt if he's going to co-host the show with you. But nonetheless, be on the lookout for all that stuff. That stuff's coming out relatively soon. Let's get right to some of the topics of the day. U.S. Central Command, CENTCOM, has been warning commercial ships that the United States is in charge of the Strait of Hormuz now. And we're doing this because Iran needed to be kicked right in the place that they were acting like we couldn't kick them in that place. And we certainly have. Here's a little bit of breaking news from Fox, I think, first talking about this and how it was effective officially today, where the U.S. is making a lot of decisions at the Strait of Hormuz. And honestly, throughout all of Iranian waters.
The U.S. has announced a formal blockade of Iranian ports and coastal areas. This is illegal action. All vessels are advised to immediately return to port if leaving and discontinue transit to Iran if that is your next port of call. Do not attempt to breach the blockade. Vessels will be boarded for interdiction and seizure transiting to or from an Iranian port. Turn around and prepare to be boarded. If you do not comply with this blockade, we will use force. The whole of the United States Navy is ready to force compliance. Now.
All right, I want to hit pause right there. If I were in a ship and I were going toward any Iranian waters where I'm going to stop at one of their ports of entry, and I get this broadcast from the U.S., especially that last part.
Turn around and prepare to be boarded. If you do not comply with this blockade, we will use force. The whole of the United States Navy is ready to force compliance. Now.
Terrifying. Yeah, that part's terrifying if I was anybody else, to be like the whole of the U.S. Navy is going to make sure that people listen here because Iran needed to be kicked in the place that they needed to be kicked in, as I'll keep calling it that. And this seems to be exactly the thing that's going to get us across the finish line here. It will end the conflict. It will demonstrate to Iran that messing with the United States is stupid. It's a nuclear option without the nuclear option, I guess, in a sense I could say this, because we didn't take out, we certainly didn't use nuclear weapons, but we also didn't take out any of their infrastructure. We just made it impossible to bring them stuff. This was the easiest way to go about, I hope, this being the actual end to this conflict. And we'll see. Many reports are that Iran is now begging for certain different forms of discussion. There have been vessels that have been turned around, too. There was another breaking news report from Fox News. I can play that one as well.
News alert. It's day 3 of the U.S. blockade against ports in Iran. CENTCOM says so far, no Iranian ships have breached it. Maybe this warning had something to do with it.
They're going to play the warning again. But anyway, no ships have breached it. 10 vessels have been turned around. That's another part of the information that should be out there, too. Because, yeah, of course, if you're going up against the U.S. Navy, you're not going to have a good time. And I really feel like all the different versions of discussion, all the things leading up to this moment, were people getting angry at words. Because actions always matter more than words. We're such a weird society. Let me complain, and I think a lot of people listening to this show, a lot of individuals maybe of not the youngest of generations out there, will feel the same way I do. So many people now seem to think that words are the same as actions. They act like words matter to the degree that actions do, and they don't. They simply don't. There's no equivalent to actually taking steps to saying I'm going to do a thing. And I know there were a lot of people. There were a lot of talking heads in the podcast spaces, in the, as they call them, the conservative pod bro spaces out there, even though some of those people are ladies and not bros at all. But nonetheless, all of that discussion, the entirety of the belief there is that the things Trump said were terrible. Like, how dare he say this or that, or on Easter Sunday, puts this up on Truth Social, and all that's just words. It's just bluster, potentially, because it seems like we're going to get everything we want through doing something that doesn't actually cause permanent damage to the infrastructure of another country. And this was always an obvious step that we could take to create a blockade with the might of our military. And so we'll see. We'll see what occurs here. I don't like putting U.S. lives on the line. I don't like risking U.S. lives. I'm going to continue to praise the military for their willingness, the individuals who serve and protect this country, and everything that we hold dear for being willing to do that, to put their lives in jeopardy. But this does seem to be the approach that most mainstream media would not have wanted Trump to go down, because there's no valuable way to fight it. There's no look at how terrible he's being and all the innocent lives that he's taking, a version of discussion. And again, the thing that I think is most important in all of this is I no longer care what mainstream media or a lot of the talking head people say about words. I only care about actions. You forced me, mainstream media out there, to only care about actions because of how stupid it is to have a discussion before we actually get to the point where we know what's going to occur and what the end result of that is, et cetera, et cetera. All right, I want to move on. I love this. I'll probably be talking about Iran a little bit more later in the show. We only get an hour. But I love this. This is Dan Bongino. He's going to play audio of a moron that has no idea what fascism means, didn't even spell it right on her sign. It's so funny. And then Bongino reacts even better to it. So I'm going to play a whole clip from Dan's podcast that he does every day. It's on Rumble. It's a bunch of places. You can check it out there. This is earlier today's show. But this is so funny because you probably know people like this, or at least have interacted with people like this, who say things that they see on television, say things that they hear somewhere and have no idea what they mean, but seem like they're passionate. Maybe they're getting a paycheck to be there. I don't know. But seem like they're passionate enough about these topics until you ask them even the most basic questions about the thing they're claiming that they're out there fighting the good fight on. Here we go.
Play this Caitlin Bennett video and you'll see what I mean. This is what it looks like to be voluntarily stupid. Check this out.
Sign says fight fascism. What is fascism?
Fascism is the breakdown of a society. There's no society when fascism is present.
What?
Can you give me a definition?
I don't really know if I have to give you a definition because I know I feel violated against my government.
Okay.
I want to stop it right there because I'm going to play more of it and then Bongino's reaction. I love that she's already going the I feel violated road. The minute that you're challenging her on whether or not she's at all intelligent as a person and even understands the definition of the word she's saying she's upset about, she's like, I feel violated.
Okay, but what is fascism? When we want to fight something, it's easy. It's good to define them, right?
Yes.
We could phone a friend. What is fascism? You could help her.
I don't want to speak to you. I don't want to speak to you.
I don't like you.
I'm fighting for how I feel.
Right.
For others.
About
of course. What specifically do you feel?
Can you not hear it in my voice?
Yeah, I can hear
Are you
going
to cry? Because I asked you to define a term on your sign? It's actually not even spelled right. It actually says fascism.
Can you hear it in my voice? I'm going to cry over fascism. What is fascism? Objecting to people using like the Face app to look good on Reels? Like, what the hell is that? Yeah. You don't have to be stupid. And the tragically hilarious part about that whole exchange is the fascism sign holder who can't even spell fascism could have just looked it up. If you would have looked up fascism, you'd understand that it's marked by authoritarianism and a perverted sense of ultranationalism that empowers government, i.e. under a dictator. You could have looked it up.
Yeah, you could easily look that up. I agree with Dan Bongino on that. But I just love the part where he says you don't have to be stupid. This is my favorite thing.
What is fascism? Objecting to people using like the Face app to look good on Reels? Like, what the hell is that? You don't have to be stupid.
You do not. There's a bunch of situations in society where someone says a thing and they demonstrate in what they say how little they understand of the thing they're talking about. And it's always hilarious to me. I don't know when it's not funny. I wonder if you think it's funny too, because I love the people who will roll out there, like this woman who will be so confident. They get the sign. They misspell fascism. They forget the S. They just put a C. They get out there. They stand up with the sign and yell and scream. Someone comes up to them with a camera and a microphone. And by the way, the youngest generation hates when they're caught on video doing something stupid. If there's no camera and no microphone, this woman wouldn't care that she's being caught being a moron, the liberal who demonstrates her inability to understand some basic stuff. But the fact that it's being recorded, she knows she's going to be embarrassed publicly and maybe go viral. That makes her sad. But I love it because there's such a, I complain about this a lot, and I'm going to do it again. There's such a unique sense of arrogance in certain people in our society, and I think predominantly Democrats and potentially Democratic voters, in how they think they comprehend something on a surface level, or even in this case, not even the surface level of a discussion there. No mention of dictators and what that actually means, and how even fascism compares to, say, communism or any of the other things that the left seems to really love. But I digress. What I think is just so amazing about this is a lot of us seem to have digital courage. I would call it liquid courage, and you'd know what that is. Anybody that goes to a bar and then hits on a person that's way outside of your league, that was liquid courage that allowed you to do that. I have a buddy who, whenever he goes to a karaoke bar, he does not sing a song because he's not a great singer until some liquid courage hits him, and then he does it. There's a lot of people who have digital courage, where they think if I can Google something on my phone, I can pretend as though I know it until I Google it. And it's amazing to see the way it plays out in our society in so many different ways. But I love it because you know, and I know, that when someone shows you how little they comprehend of a thing they're trying to talk about, that you have a choice as a person. You can stand there and be like, oh, it's a great question. I love what you just said there. I love that avenue we're trying to go down. Pretend they're smart and then walk away. Or you can do the opposite. You can show that maybe this might be something that's outside of their frame of reference at the moment. Maybe they should do a little bit of research, like this lady should just look up the word if she's going to misspell it and put it on a sign. But I digress. Other stuff out there. Peter Doocy today asked Caroline Leavitt about the missing American scientists. This is a story that came up because a caller called into the show and asked about it. I actually did have audio the day they called in from Will Kane, who's been doing a lot of this on Fox News. It's simply true. I know that it obviously sounds as though talking about it means you also believe and I'm going to use air quotes when I say this for anyone watching on any of our social media apps, conspiracy theories, that this is all by design, that 10 people dying all tied to scientific exploration that is somehow, I think, in the orbit of space exploration, all that. Like, of course, I think there could be ties to this stuff. I'm not pretending it isn't. But there's people who would avoid discussing this topic because they think even bringing it up means you're dabbling too close into the world of quote-unquote conspiracy theory. But it is simply true. Scientists have gone missing or have been confirmed to have died mysteriously. And so Doocy decided to ask Leavitt about it today. I thought it was an interesting back and forth. Just bringing these topics up to some is the equivalent of me backing, the craziest version of a conspiracy theory out there. I want to be clear that I'm not doing that, but I'm certainly not afraid of this topic.
There are now 10 American scientists who have either gone missing or died since mid-2024. They all reportedly had access to classified nuclear or aerospace material. Is anybody investigating this to see if these things are connected?
I've seen the report, Peter. I haven't spoken to our relevant agencies about it. I will certainly do that and we'll get you an answer. If true, of course, that's definitely something I think this government and administration would deem worth looking into. So let me do that for you.
She says that she's not really totally sure of the specifics of the topic. Now, again, Will Kane and others have been reporting the exact names, the individuals, the odd things about some of the people who we know did die, like people who were actually shot and killed. Then there are also a lot of individuals who've just gone completely missing. So yeah, it feels like when you get to 10, 11, 12 names, and I actually think there might be 12, although Doocy says 10, you got to at least look into that. You got to explore some options here, because these are the kind of things that build in how they're discussed maybe outside of mainstream media. And then eventually there's people like Bart in Spring calling into the show and asking why he's not hearing more of this on the radio. And the truth is, and I'll just be definitive about it, I don't know what the answer is to the mysteriousness of this discussion. And I'm not sure that I personally will have the resources to dive into it. I don't know that I'll be able to go chase down the leads myself, but I certainly am not going to shy away from paying attention to that story, because I do think there's another thing in play often for certainly mainstream media and the crappiness that is those people. And it's also an arrogance thing. So let's have the theme of the show to some extent be how much arrogance harms parts of our society. It harms the liberal morons who say the terrible stuff, and it also harms our mainstream media outlets that no one trusts anymore. They think that talking about something means that you're so dumb, that I'm so stupid, that if they say anything at all, we'll get confused and think the craziest thing. So they shy away from these topics. That's always their excuse. I used to talk about this on the Saturday show. that I did here. When I worked at some other places that had newsrooms as part of the radio group, we don't have a newsroom at KSEV. I'm sure we did at one point, but now we use Town Hall News, and you hear that at the top of every single hour. But when I used to work at radio stations that had news employees, they were still lefties. Even when the station wanted to be conservative, and if you don't live in Texas or Florida and your station says they're conservative, like in Illinois, it's not. You wouldn't think it's conservative here. They thought they were there. But anyway, there were a bunch of like news people, and I've mentioned this before, as I said, that in meetings would say, oh, we can't talk about that. We can't even bring that topic up. And I would always raise my hand and be like, why? And they'd say, well, if we discuss it, then people are going to think the conspiracy thing that maybe is true, by the way, is something we're backing, and then we just have to avoid it. It's so dumb. And honestly, and I guess this is the last thing I'll say about this sort of rant of a topic. We'll take a break. We'll come back. I will play some more audio of Caroline Leavitt. But I think that the podcast people out there are gaining credibility compared to mainstream media outlets, compared to legacy media outlets, by talking about things like Joe Rogan. That's the best example I could use. He is unafraid of any topic. He's unafraid of having any guest on, letting them say whatever they want, regardless of if it's right or wrong. Tucker Carlson did this with Nick Fuentes. Whether or not you think Nick Fuentes is insane and an anti-Semite and all the things that he definitely seems to be, I definitely think he is those things too, by the way. Not allowing those voices to have an attempt to have a discussion makes so many people believe that they're actually telling the truth and they're being silenced. And so I do think credibility comes from discussing these topics, whatever they are, and not shying away from them. And I think mainstream news media is the biggest sinner in this world of thinking that they can just ignore certain things and it won't harm their credibility. And they're always wrong about that. And our own stations that I used to work at, not here, but other places, were always wrong about that. I'm tempted to tell this story again because I don't think I've told it on the weekday show. I'll just do it, and then we'll take a break. I was working at a radio station somewhere that's not here, a state that's not here. And a crazy thing happened. And I'll tell you all of the variables of what actually occurred, because they're all confirmed, truthful details now. I think a newspaper in town in Illinois where I was talking about this thing eventually confirmed a lot of this. So someone who is the head of a big charity organization mysteriously died. It was a gunshot wound. And at first, the narrative in mainstream media was an accident. Then it was a suicide. Then a lot of people in media, including the places I worked, said they couldn't discuss it because discussing suicide encourages other people to hurt themselves. And this was a real back and forth discussion in a all-staff meeting where I was being told that they had to ignore the topic. They could not discuss it, even without giving the variable of if you're struggling mentally, there are suicide hotlines, places to reach out, to connect. They essentially were saying that if someone who could harm themselves hears that someone else in the world had harmed themselves, that they're just going to do it. And so to protect lives was the way they told it to me. We couldn't discuss this topic. Now, the stuff that was missing is that the person was a far-left donor and a big part of the Democratic machine within that community, and the charity organization was connected to the machine. Like, all of it was all the things that you and I think of when we hear these crazy stories. And so eventually I broke some rules, and I talked about some things as they became publicly confirmed by the newspaper, because my argument was continued to be, once it's out there in another source, we're not even breaking it. But I was so frustrated and so angry that place had put its boot on my neck to tell me what I couldn't talk about. And their excuse was so profoundly stupid. And the biggest reason that it was stupid, I'll just say this before I take a break. The society we live in now means that all of this information, all of these conspiracy theories or whatever you want to call them, in this case, something that was 100% factual and mainstream media was trying to deny and pretend wasn't real, that the woman hadn't killed herself and that she wasn't tied to organizations that were misusing money, that had political connections, all of that stuff. The biggest thing about it that was so, important to me is that they thought that whatever the thing they said, like with the excuse they used in the room, was enough to satiate everyone when we live in a world where all of this information is available on all of our fingertips. Let me talk about this in a different sense, just in case anyone is interested in this, because I am. Part of the reason that I don't play any traffic or do any weather during this show, the 6 o'clock hour of the radio, is because your cell phone gives you all that information. You can see the weather whenever you want to see it. If you're driving and using an app to drive around, it can tell you the traffic. Waze can actually tell you a new route to go. There's certain technological advances in our society that sometimes mean some of the things we've done before are less valuable than they used to be. And that was the thing I would say in those meetings when they were saying that we couldn't talk about something because suicide was an aspect of it. They're like, well, we can't say that out loud because we're going to inform people that might be at risk that, suicide is a thing. And it was just such a stupid premise to an obviously politically motivated desire to bury a story that it drove me insane. And there's so many versions of that we see now where people try to bury and ignore stuff so that you don't even think about it because they're going to pretend it's for you, it's in your best interest, when really they know it's in theirs. All right, we will take a break. There's a lot to talk about. Thrilled to be with you. This is the Craig Collins Show, KSEV, KGBC, the Voice of Texas. More coming up in a bit.
Where we go in life matters, and what we do matters. And we know that taking the wrong road won't produce the best outcomes. Hi, I'm Kathy with Baker Mortgage, and we want you to take the right path when it comes to your mortgage. We live in a world of information overload, but always consider the source. And these are not generally going to be from your big bank or a random offer that comes across your screen. Remember, you're always going to get a better deal on one that you go looking for than one that comes looking for you. You need to deal with somebody who gives a you-know-what, whether or not you're happy in the end. At Baker Mortgage, we do it right. We haven't been around for 68 years because we're lucky. We don't sell CDs, insurance, or anything else. We just provide a great mortgage experience. Isn't that what you're looking for? Call us at Baker Mortgage. I promise you'll be glad you did. We're at 281-313-MOVE or go directly to bakermortgage.com.
Equal housing lender. License number 263213.
This is Kevin O'Hara with O'Hara & Company Real Estate. Our country's founding fathers drafted a document that is the Declaration of Independence. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. To secure these rights, governments are instituted among men, deriving their powers from the consent of the governed. My friends at O'Hara & Company Real Estate, we believe we're at a precipice in time where we must take back our country. We must stand up for our freedoms or lose them forever. Please don't sit idle and let it slip away. Don't let anyone force you to do something you choose not to. As JFK said, if not us, who? If not now, when? If you're looking to buy or sell real estate, give O'Hara & Company Real Estate a call at 281-373-3393, 281-373-3393, or look us up on the web at o'harare.com. I'm Kevin O'Hara. God bless America, and God bless Texas.
Dan Patrick for my friend Louis Flory and Ability Tree Experts.
Spring is here and summer just around the corner, which means it's time to deep root fertilize your trees in addition to spraying for insects and disease. Let Ability Trees help maintain their value and repair all damage. Fed and prune tree will be less susceptible to wind damage and uprooting. Caring for the beautiful and valuable trees on your property that you can't replace should be done by experts. And the experts I use, it's very clear. It's Ability Tree Experts and Louis Flory, my friend for over 40 years. Gosh, this guy is the pro when it comes to taking care of trees. Pruning is important for the health of your trees, and pruning limits resistance to spring storms and allows the sun and fresh air into the canopy. Trees can be in distress several months without showing any signs, so don't wait to protect your investment at 281-441-4179, 281-441-4179, or visit their website at abilitytrees.com. Right now, Ability Trees is giving a deep root feeding with every tree prune. Ability Trees, Houston's leading tree care professional.
Larry, it must be a great day for you. This is probably the happiest day since April 15th in 1982, the year after the Reagan thing kicked in. And I know you were a big part of all that. Here's the thing. When the big, beautiful bill was initially passed, we just got hammered. The legacy media jumped all over us.
Yeah.
And the Dems jumped all over us.
True.
And it was all spin. And the American people, really, let's be honest, the polling was not good. They thought it was everything the spin said it was, which it was not. Now, today, we have the difference between spin and life experience, which is to say, Larry, when millions upon millions of Americans are getting a tax refund that cumulatively is the biggest one in American history, they understand that this tax cut is for them.
Yeah, we're happy about that sort of thing. That's Peter Navarro popping up on Fox Business to talk about the fact that, one, it's tax day. You got to at least file an extension, if not get your taxes done. I'm an early tax person. I get my taxes done like a month ago. I'm not trying to brag. I do it because I have a lot of different incomes in different places. Most of it is actually as an independent contractor or business, and so then I'm actually doing taxes all year long. You pay taxes every 3 months, or at least I have been. Even here in Texas, maybe I can stop doing that. Maybe it's not as necessary as it was when I was in Illinois to do that, but the tax return is amazing. And this is, for me, one of the biggest ones I've ever gotten. I don't know if part of it is relocating to the state. I assume it is, but it's not just that. I'm sure it's other things. No tax on tips and overtime has been big for a lot of Americans. And you know what's also funny about this topic? Just quickly saying this. These are the things that transformed the messaging on the conservative side of the aisle. It transformed the Republican Party to be the party of the working class American. This is something that a certain number of years ago, I think would easily have been a Democratic talking point and a strength of the Democratic Party that is now something that, whether it's Trump or whoever you want to give credit to, I would lean toward Trump, that it happens to be something that really strengthens the conservative message to the American people, that these tax cuts and inevitably maybe getting rid of taxes entirely. President Trump has talked about that before, how tariffs are really a conduit to us not paying any taxes ourselves anymore. Yeah, maybe things get more expensive, although if they get manufactured here, maybe not. But we also don't have to pay as much of our money. It doesn't have to get stolen by the government when they don't deserve it. They didn't work for it. But most Americans will be happy today. And it's funny. These are things that I usually say to people. I don't know if these, no, by and large, some of the people that I'll say this to are Democrats. But sometimes I think they're actually Republicans and don't know it yet. Like, I'll get into these discussions. I'm 40. People a little younger than me, people that maybe have a kid or two, maybe don't. Maybe they own their first home, maybe not. Although all of those things that you do in life teach you a lot more than maybe you're aware of when you're 20-something living with your parents in their basement. Like, that you're a different stage of life. You don't understand the value of, say, the tax cut in the same way that you do when you start to live on your own and have your own family. But nonetheless, when I have these discussions with people, these are usually the things I say as ways that conservatives can keep winning elections. I'm like, you seem to think that there's a big, giant blue wave coming in 2026 in this midterm election we have coming up. I've heard some pundits, again, I think Greg Kelly was saying this the other day. He's one of them that believe it's not going to be as big of a midterm loss as some are already claiming here in April that they think it's going to be, which is sort of crazy. We're way too far away from it. But even when you look at Iran, what's going on today, the blockade, the attempt to tell Iran through a unique use of force that messing with us has been dumb. If you continue to mess with us, it will continue to be bad for you. Let's get to the drawing board. Let's have a discussion. Let's end this thing and end this thing in a way that makes sense to us. Let's not have the loss that is Afghanistan during the Biden administration. Let's go ahead and win profoundly, and then let's give that win to the American people. What I say is, if that happens, like in the next month and a half, if gas prices go way back down to what they were or even lower, most people are going to be happy. Most people who get their tax refund back and see the amount of money they're getting, they'll be happy. They might not give credit to Trump because mainstream media has tried so hard to pretend it's not a thing he deserves. But nonetheless, those are things that are irrefutable. What happens in your day-to-day life, your personal experience, will always rise above whatever the narrative that people are telling you is the truth. That's why stuff like the border wound up mattering so much in our last election, because no matter what mainstream media said, and the Democrats said about a wide-open border being totally fine and not a big deal, it was a big deal, and a lot of people cared, especially in places like Chicago. As I talked about that before, you'd have like very black communities in Chicago, very Democratic voter sort of hubs within our country, just so upset at the ridiculousness of the wide open border. And you knew you won at that point because that was a day-to-day experience that you couldn't convince people they weren't having. Trust your eyes, trust your own day-to-day life. All right, let's play some more audio. This is Catherine Levitt. This is talking about what I think is sort of an amazing troll and also a reality. Like, I think President Trump, of course, will be doing this, but the fact that this is something that's going to drive some people insane makes it so much more fun to talk about. Here we go.
Just one final announcement. As you know, this year we celebrate America's 250th birthday. In honor of this historic occasion, President Trump and the Department of Interior will submit plans for the United States Triumphal Arch, which will be an architectural masterpiece to celebrate our history.
Triumphal.
Right here in Washington, D.C. This is a rendering of the Ark for you.
I really wish it was just called the Trumpful. But
Thank
continue.
you, Peter. It's quite beautiful, as you can see, and this monumental ark will beam at 250 feet tall in honor of 250 years and stand on ground that is currently empty green space in Memorial Circle on Columbia Island, a man-made island in the Potomac River managed by the National Park Service. The United States Triumphal Arch will be outfitted with beautiful artwork and depictions celebrating the success of the American people over our 250-year history and the enduring triumph of the American spirit.
You know what's funny about President Trump being someone who came from, the construction business in New York City is I wonder if occasionally, as he's doing other stuff, running the country, a part of him is like, man, I'd like to build something. We're going to do all these other things, but I'd also like to build something, whether it's a ballroom, whatever it might be. And so the Triumphal Arch, or the Trumpful Arch, as I think a lot of people will call it, sounds like a pretty fun thing. And again, it sounds like something that a whole lot of people are going to be upset and yell about. And as you hear them yell about it, you'll look at them and you'll say, what are you mad about? Celebrating America makes you mad somehow? Building something somewhere that we have every ability to afford that might be a cool thing for people to eventually go visit. This makes you upset because it's not actually a political right versus left thing. It's just we're going to create something in honor of the fact that our country has been awesome for quite some time. All right, one last thing I'll play, and then we'll take another break. Legal asylum claims at U.S. ports of entry have plummeted during Trump's second term in office. This was essentially the biggest trigger to the catch and release administration that was the Biden administration. You swing the border wide open. You allow people to make claims, even just on their phone. Like, the craziest thing that the Biden administration did is it created an app that randomly gave a bunch of people access to our country every day that were just logged into the app at our border. You could just come through, and essentially that app was like, yeah, you'll do an asylum claim at some point. And then everybody who walked through the doors never showed up for their asylum hearing. Shocking, surprising, I know, to everyone out there that they would do that. But that is essentially a version of catch and release, where people then just live here illegally. Let's hear a little bit of this discussion about how big of a change this has been during this administration.
Immigration under the second Trump administration. Legal entries by asylum seekers at the U.S.-Mexican border, legal entry points, are down 99.9%. Take a look at what happened essentially as President Donald Trump took office. When Joe Biden was in office, 45,000 sought asylum. In January of 2024 alone, the drop-off right here in January of 2025, happening again with the beginning of the presidency of Donald Trump. Now, let's take a look at refugee admissions from abroad. It's a similar story. The Trump administration slashing the number of refugees admitted in the United States. You can see the dashed line where President Trump takes office, representing the steep decline, a 90% drop.
Yeah, I'll stop it right there. This is how Democrats get to say out loud that someone is here legally when they're not. When they have a bogus asylum claim that a previous administration would process through, and then they don't show up, as I said, at the court hearing to actually try to convince our judicial system that they deserve their asylum claim because they have no interest in doing that, because likely they don't. But because of the way that those sort of things are manipulated, Democrats then get to claim that there are people who are here legally that are being kicked out of this country, when the reality is they're not. And if you have a bogus version of a refugee or an asylum claim, it's not going to work anymore. So you don't show up, you don't even try, because those are the ways they abuse the system. And actually, I'll just say this again. I know I was talking about it yesterday, but I think that all the money that Tallarico is raising and all the attempts of Democrats to get their fingers in some sort of the sandbox that is Texas is to start creating these types of systems here, start undercutting any of the things that make Texas one of the best states in the country, and try to force more and more of that crap down our throats and just in general in ways that will hurt us forever, essentially turn us into versions of Minnesota, where a whole bunch of Somalians are just getting a whole bunch of our money here like they are there. And, of course, we can't let that happen. And so I think that I'll keep advocating for people to vote for Ken Paxton because I do want to say one other thing in this runoff election. If it is John Cornyn who winds up being the nominee, I actually don't blame people for being so upset with our system, being so angry in how they feel like their voice can't be heard no matter what, that they actually sat out the real election. Now, I don't think that would be good for Texas. It would be horrible for Texas. Allowing Tallarico to get any closer to potentially getting elected is terrible. It's not a good thing. It would be very bad, as I'm saying, as the preface to this statement. But I understand, and I think this is why Trump never wound up endorsing Cornyn. I understand how people could feel defeated if you can't even get a Cornyn to be a guy who goes away in a place like Texas. Like, he just has to go away. For the principles of this state, for the conservatives in this state to feel as though their voices matter, that person can't keep having an opportunity in that job. It just can't occur because disenfranchising your base is a really, really bad move and incredibly likely if that happens. So I'm going to keep advocating now for Ken Paxton, even though I know his past has some issues in it. And I'm not going to say whether or not those are things that should motivate you to choose to vote for him or not. I know there's challenges there. I just know that when you look at the two, it's so much better than Cornyn because he actually is going to fight for the things that we care about. And we just can't allow, you know what, actually, I'll say it this way. I've already said his name once. I'm going to say his name again. Nick Fuentes recently on social media went viral because he put something up about his advocacy to vote for Democrats in 2026. Now, if you don't know who this guy is, and I'm not recommending you go look because he's pretty crazy, controversial, far-right, basically a Nazi sympathizer. It's what people say about him. It seems to be true. He'll couch some of that in saying he's just kidding around, but there's actually videos where Nick Fuentes talks about how some of your beliefs need to be couched as jokes so that you can still say them. So he's said the quiet part out loud before. But anyway, he's advocating for young conservatives, and he's got like a 1 million person fan base on social media, maybe higher than that on some of the other platforms. But he's advocating for them to vote for Democrats in 2026. And that would be horrible. That would be terrible. And it's to send a message, to send a lesson. I think you have to coach yourself into understanding that being very angry at the political machine is different than handing it over to the worst possible people. And you've got to find a way to not do that. And so I do think that more and more of these voices that are saying the same things that these people like Fuentes are saying are potentially going to get a lot of young conservatives to do something that'll harm us for a lot longer than, say, fighting right now to make sure that the people that we're nominating to run in these races are people that actually deserve it. Cornyn is not that person. That is easily probably one of the most definitive things I could say, and I've discovered within just a year of living here that you kind of know from afar. But all right, we'll take a break. We'll come back. We'll have a little bit more discussion. We'll do some fun stuff. We'll do a quick 4-ish topic because why not? That's stolen directly from Dana Lash. I try to do it every day at the end of the show. That coming up and more in a bit. This is the Craig Collins Show, KSEV, KGBC, the voice of Texas.
Hi, this is Paul Betancourt. Property values may have peaked, making 2026 a must-year to protest your property taxes. Sign up with my excellent Betancourt tax advisor team at btanow.com, as our experienced senior property tax agents and customer service matter. The Taxman says do it now.
Sign up with Betancourt Tax Advisors by going online to btanow.com or by calling Paul's professional property team at 713-263-6100.
Wesley Financial Group is not a law firm, and Chuck McDowell, definitely not an attorney. This is Chuck. If someone talked you into buying something really silly and you want to get out of that silly little thing, my advice, get the facts. Call me and I'll send you our timeshare exit kit absolutely free. Inside, you'll learn how timeshare works and all your options for cancellation.
Call Wesley now for your free exit information kit. 800-909-9696. 800-909-9696.
Hi, I'm Tommy Mello with Garage Door Doctors. My mom recently moved into a new home with a builder-grade garage door. Noisy, flimsy, and not built to last, so we're fixing that. Mom, you're my hero. When I was growing up, she worked 3 jobs just to save our house.
And helped you build this company.
Now I'm giving her a beautiful new garage door that's built to last. The garage is 40% of your home's curb appeal. When it looks good and it works great.
Life is good. Thanks, Tommy.
From repairs to upgrades, call Garage Door Doctor today.
Finding great candidates to hire can be like, well, trying to find a needle in a haystack. Sure, you can post your job to some job board, but then all you can do is hope the right person comes along. Which is why you should try ZipRecruiter for free at ZipRecruiter.com/free. ZipRecruiter doesn't depend on candidates finding you. It finds them for you. Its powerful technology identifies people with the right experience and actively invites them to apply to your job. You get qualified candidates fast. So while other companies might deliver a lot of hay, ZipRecruiter finds you what you're looking for. The needle in the haystack.
See why 4 out of 5 employers who post a job on ZipRecruiter get a quality candidate within the first day. ZipRecruiter, the smartest way to hire. And right now, you can try ZipRecruiter for free. That's right, free. At ZipRecruiter.com/free. That's ZipRecruiter.com/free. ZipRecruiter.com/free.
ZipRecruiter. That's a lot of ZipRecruiters at the end of that commercial. This is the Craig Collins Show, KSEV, KGBC, the voice of Texas. A few sillier things. We call these the quick 4-ish topics, because if we called it the quick 5, we'd be fully stealing it from Dana Lash, not just mostly stealing it. I thought this was funny. There's a brand new viral cereal that actually is real. It's called Meaty's Beef Cereal, and it's exactly what you think it is, by the way. Ground beef. It comes in 2 different flavors, chocolate, peanut butter, and maple cinnamon. Everything about this sounds terrible. There are fitness influencers who are out there in the world of social media who have been trying this and talking about it online. I do want to play this. By the way, Meaty's Beef Cereal, which I think you can only buy online, is currently fully sold out. So bad news for anyone that's enticed by the thing I'm about to play. You cannot have ground beef cereal for breakfast right now because you can't buy it from at least this one place.
So I just got the viral Meaty's cereal. It's got 20 grams of grass-fed beef. It's also got raw honey, roasted peanuts, cocoa, salt, and monk fruit extract. This stuff kind of looks like a joke. Let's try it. Feels really crispy, and it kind of looks like dried up ground beef. I think it's actually really good. Like ground beef cereal just doesn't sound that good.
No, it doesn't.
You taste the raw cocoa, the honey, the peanut butter. I think my kids don't like it, honestly, because of the raw cocoa. It's not like Fruity Pebbles. Would I eat this every day? No. But does it taste a lot better than I thought? 100%.
Yeah, that's not the same thing as saying that you actually advocate for it. Although I wonder, Texas, I mean, we're people who understand the value of steak and whatnot. I wonder if here is the right place for the Meaty's Beef Cereal to be a thing that really catches on. I would feel kind of awesome having a version of steak with just ground beef for breakfast. I've talked about it before. I think I even joked about it on Chris X's show at one point, close to my birthday. But my wife does a steak day for me, which I have a breakfast steak, a lunch steak, and a dinner steak. They're all filet mignon. They're all delicious, but none of them are put in cereal. None of them are pretending to be cereal. It's just steak, the way that you'd normally eat it, rare with some sides. And no steak sauce, because I don't believe in that sort of thing. But nonetheless, I just think this is funny that some of the influencers are surprised that they don't hate it as much as they thought they would, because that's still not a ringing endorsement. Other sillier topics out there. A marijuana breathalyzer is one step closer to becoming a real thing. A research team has introduced a prototype THC breathalyzer that could be used on the roadside by cops. 24 states have legalized pot for recreational use. It's still illegal to drive while under the influence anywhere. Of course, here in Texas, a bunch of this stuff is illegal. Thank God we don't live. And honestly, this is the kind of crap that Talarico would try to change, I imagine. If he got to be a senator here, he wouldn't be capable of doing that. He would just try to push and shove people in the direction of these sorts of things. But this is desperately needed. I imagine a lot of people out there like me occasionally wind up behind a car where you can absolutely smell that they're smoking because of the amount of fumes wafting out of the vehicle as it drives by you. And that's something. When you smell one of those cars where they're smoking that much that it's coming out as much as their gasoline is, like, you know that they're a dangerous person on the road. And a lot of people, I think, are dangerous. Actually, I saw this just yesterday going home. I was going home last night from the show, and I'm driving pretty close to my house, which is in Houston, in the city. And this person was slowly changing lanes and then slowly getting off of 610 and then slowly trying to turn the corner into a gas station. And everything they did it at like 15 miles per hour. And again, they were on 610 at one point while they're doing this. It was horrific to watch because there's no way that person was doing that sober. There's no way they were. And I saw it was a young person in the car as I finally got by it. And it's just like how dangerous that is and how crazy these people are that do this stuff. And they think just because they can't get caught, it's totally fine. But hopefully this thing that's getting developed actually gets off the ground and we can start testing more people. And honestly, if you get that person out of the car, I know they're going to fail any sort of field sobriety test. So there's an important point there. And anyone wondering, I did actually call the cops. I did actually let them know that there was a vehicle doing the things it was doing because I was trying to protect other people. All right, I want to play this. This is a strange story. In Canada, a beaver is accused of trying to steal firewood. This is a real story. A sergeant and a store manager were both caught on camera, or I think they're both just did an interview talking about the beaver that is a suspect in an attempted wood theft. Only a story that comes out of Canada. I just found it amusing enough and weird enough that I wanted to play it here.
We try to have a little bit of fun with things when we can. You know, obviously there's a lot of sad things with police work. And so when something, interesting and fun like this happens, we try to make note of it too.
If you're around Hannah, you don't see a lot of trees. So I would imagine maybe there was a shortage and maybe he wanted to pick up some firewood.
Yeah, they caught a beaver on camera stealing firewood from a business that I think at one point actually thought someone else was stealing it, but it wound up just being an animal, and it went viral in Canada because, darn it, it's Canada. Still not a great place, I would think, to live, but at least a place that understands some of the humor of some of the ridiculous things that are out there. One last story that I thought was interesting, and I do think that this is the kind of thing that maybe you can adjust by age however you feel. It went viral. It's on askreddit.com, a social media place I like to go occasionally. But it's phrases that make people know you're not in your 20s anymore. And I think you could do this about any generation. You're not in your 30s anymore, not in your 40s anymore. But things like people who are 30 seem young. When you say that, you're not in that age bracket anymore. That was number 3 on the list. Having no weekend plans is your favorite kind of a weekend is something that young people say makes you sound older, which is ridiculous because having nothing to do on a weekend is what the weekend is designed for. And then finally, saying something like dinner parties that begin at 7 are kind of late. Those feel too late to me. They got to be something that happens at 6. I think even attending parties feels like the kind of thing that as you get older, I don't know if I want to do that. I would rather just probably grab a beer or something with a couple people than show up where a lot of people are all at the same time. Although, actually, I shouldn't say that. I do still like going to bigger social events more than my wife does. My wife is very not a fan of any of that stuff. All right. You know what? I'll do one more silly thing before we get out of here. I don't have enough time to do a serious topic. I saw that 29% of Americans procrastinated on filing their taxes this year. This is actually down. More people this year than in the past did their taxes early, and I imagine that's because they were excited. There was an opportunity that they were going to get more money back than they've gotten back before. And we played that audio a minute ago from Peter Navarro that, yes, a lot of Americans are making a whole bunch of money this year compared to what they typically got in tax returns because of the big, beautiful bill. But still, 30% of Americans were like, nah, I'm going to wait on this. I'm not going to do it till day of. I'm typically in that boat myself. I usually actually will do it the weekend before whatever the 15th of April is. So this past weekend, I would have done it. I was motivated because of the things that changed in our society to do it well over a month ago. But I love the fact that 3% of people admit that they just aren't going to do it at all. That's really funny to me. And the reason I find that so funny, I know that's not a huge number, is you'd wonder if, like, the government was doing this survey. If I had somebody walk up to me on the street and be like, hey, when are you doing your taxes? Do you think you're doing them today, or do you think you're doing them, like, or did you do them before today? And 3% of people is like, I'm just not doing it. I'm not going to file it. I'm not going to ask for an extension. I'm not going to do anything. You'd think that that's an immediate audit. That, or I guess being a person who broadcasts in the world of conservative media, might also get you audited quite often. But I just thought that was so funny because of all the things where people might be tempted to lie to the random survey person that you don't know, you've never met, and you're not going to know after you walk away, after you answer or don't answer their question. This is one of those moments where you'd think that most people who have no intention of paying their taxes, which definitely is something you shouldn't do, it'll get you in a whole lot of trouble, would potentially just not say that out loud to anyone. It's so crazy to be that confident, to be like, oh, yeah, I'll tell this guy. I'm not doing that. Screw you. And then see if in a couple weeks there's someone knocking at your door from the IRS saying, because they'll get their money. The other thing I know, and I think probably everyone out there knows, and you probably know because maybe you know someone who got in all kinds of trouble, is the IRS always gets their money. They get every cent of it, and sometimes they get more of it than they deserve because they're not the type of organization that goes away. It would be great if they did, though. It would be so great if President Trump could get taxes to no longer be a thing because we collect money a different way. We collect money from goods through tariffs coming into our country instead of just stealing your money and my money once a year. And for some reason, we just willingly allow them to do it. But if for some reason you try to fight that good fight, everyone knows that it doesn't end well. So I just thought that was so interesting. And I love that it's such a small amount of people, but it wasn't zero. Because the 3% who were doing that when they were admitting it in the survey probably should have taken a hint from the other 97%. All right, that's it. I'm out of here. See you guys tomorrow. The Craig Collins Show, KSEV, KGBC.
You're listening
Voice
to
of
the
Texas.
Voice of Texas. AM 700 KSEV Tomball and AM 1540 KGBC Galveston.